I love cookies. I also love running. I love cookies, and cookies really aren't bad for you. Not like 1 or 2 cookies. Those aren't going to do anything to you. It's perfectly okay to have a couple cookies. I also love running. And in fact, just a little while ago, I let people know kind of publicly that I'm planning on running a half marathon this year. Those two things, they don't really go together. If you're going to run a half a marathon, then you have to train for it. And to train for it, you have to get rid of everything that's going to mess you up, even if it's good. Or at the very least, you have to learn how to control what you're eating to the point that the foods you're eating aren't hurting you. Really, you need to be eating food that's good for you and helping you run longer. On Sunday, we talked about putting God first. And we looked at it from a couple different ways, but I want to look at it with you real quick from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. The kids know this verse. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles us, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." When we're talking about putting God first, this verse is so incredibly important because we need to learn that we have to throw off everything that hinders us and the sin. Did you catch that? It's not just sin that's messing us up. Other things can hinder us too. Good things can hinder us. We can let good things get in the way of us pursuing God. And that's what we talked about with kids. We have to put God first. Just like I love cookies, if my goal is to run a half marathon, then I have to make sure that I have that in check. So if my goal is to be as much like God as I can and to love Him as good as I can love Him, or better said, if my goal is to love God and let Him transform me, then I have to make sure that I have everything in check, that I am first God's servant, and from that, everything else flows. Everything comes from me loving God, which means that I love God not just when I'm here at church, but when I'm out and about. When I'm at school, I love God. When I'm at work, I love God. When I'm playing sports, I love God. And we talked with the kids about how even in competitive sports, we have to be like God. Sometimes if we're playing basketball and we get fouled, it's really tempting to forget to try and play fair and start trying to foul that person back, right? It's really easy to get so worked up about the sport that we're playing that we forget everything else. But we have to remember that we are always a Christian. Everything we do shows the world who God is. And so we have to remember to put God first. So we're not just Christians at church. We don't just love God on Sundays, but we love Him all the time with all of our actions and everything we do. And that even means that sometimes we have to choose God over other things that are good. That means that we're not just Christians on Sunday, like I've said a lot, but we're Christians every day, everywhere, and everything we do. So this week, talk with your kids about that. Help them look at themselves and see the way they're behaving around their friends at school. Are they living in a way that brings God honor? And if they're not living in a way that brings God honor, help them pray to God to ask God to change them. Because that's the beauty of the gospel. The gospel says that we're humans and we're imperfect and we're incapable of changing ourselves, really. That's the power of the Holy Spirit, that He comes inside of us and He changes us from the inside out. So this week, lead your kids through prayers, asking God to change their lives, to change their hearts from the inside out, to help them pursue God more honestly and more fervently, that they would love God and that they would realize that they are God's, that they are Christians everywhere, and that should always be our priority, that we should always put God first.